Hello, and welcome to another fully live Q&A episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Kody Kinzie. I am a security researcher at Veronis, and today I'm going to take your security-related questions and also talk about some things in the hacker community that I've grown to like in the last couple of weeks. One of them being the hackerspace I went to in New York. If you don't know, I was just in New York for a Verona's conference, and I stopped by a couple local hackerspaces just to kind of see what they were like, and I was really impressed. I also got a haircut. So it's good to see everyone today. And yeah, we're going to go into some of your questions and also into some of the very cool things you can do if you're on New York if you are a hacker. So also a big shout out to Veronis for flying me all the way out there for our latest marketing conference. The grand haul from that, this shirt. Yeah, I think it's cool. I thought they went for it and they did something kind of cool. So anyway, is this live or no? Yes, it is fully live. Excellent question. And I will be answering many of your questions throughout the course of this episode. Haircut for pen testing? That's a great question. Yes, I was having trouble blending. I was told that I looked like I was there to participate in a rally or something, because living in the country, I've kind of let things grow out and, was wearing like a cat hat and like just looking very much like I drove a tractor. So while in New York City, I decided to be able to blend a little bit. I found that I could go into very fancy, nice spaces that I had no reason to be in with this haircut. And nobody, gave me the side eye and tried to figure out if I was trying to camp there. So yes, sort of for pen testing, but more for personal reasons, just because I like to sit in the lobby of nice hotels or otherwise not get kicked out of fancy places. But yeah, very, very cool. Can he not read my messages? No, I can't. I cannot read your messages. All right. Cool. So let's talk about some stuff that I encountered while I was in New York. One of my favorites was, I think I shouted this out last time, Hack Manhattan. So there are two hacker spaces that I locked onto in New York, and one of them is Resist NYC, and the other one is Hack Manhattan. So my hotel was a 8-minute walk from Hack Manhattan, and Resist NYC is in Brooklyn, which I've been told is far. So yeah, I decided to go to Hack Manhattan. I met some really interesting people there. And I have to say, if you're in the New York area, you should definitely check them out. They have great classes. They have really interesting people involved. And I was charmed. Hacker spaces are basically, like an embassy for nerds and any place that you go to. And I really enjoyed the ability to just go, meet some people, end up doing some urban exploration the next day. And yeah, it was very exciting and very cool. So if you haven't been to your local hackerspace, if you haven't checked one out, I know in Los Angeles, there is Nullspace Labs, which is wonderful, and I'm a member of. There's also Crash Space, and then in New York, we've got Hack Manhattan and Resist NYC. Lots of different options out there. So if you're traveling or if you live in the area, yeah, I really recommend you check them out. I frankly had a great time, and I enjoy how open and friendly the hacker community is towards beginners or people who are just just walking in. It was great to see. So if you haven't been to your local hackerspace, it's always great to support them. It's always great to check out hackerspaces when you're traveling. And if you go to Hack Manhattan, check out the refrigerator because you will see a bunch of my stickers on there. Kind of a tradition. If you've got stickers, it's almost like a passport, but in reverse, where you put stickers on the place you go to. So yeah, be sure to mark your hackerspaces when you go there. It's good to be able to see which ones your friends have been to as well. All right. Here's a great question. I don't drive a tractor. I want to so bad. And where I live, there are a lot of them. In fact, I think out here, you can be 12 or 13 years old and driving a tractor. But I have not had the ability to personally. I do have a hat that suggests that I'm forklift certified. And often that's enough to get me through, the Home Depot or something during a rush. But no, I have not driven a tractor. And that is one of my most sincere regrets. Why haven't I posted on Nullbite? Oh, let's do this one again. So this question comes up every so often. And the reason is Nullbite is owned by Wonder How To. So if I go to Nullbite and type in enter, this is not my website. This is .wonderhowto.com. So what's the story with Wonder How To? Well, I got hired there as a editor, originally as a writer and an editor. And I was in charge. I was the managing editor for the entire Nullbite section. So I basically hired hackers and got them up to speed with the help of a fantastic editor named Justin. And we were the ones who were basically behind the content at Nullbite. But it was all subordinate to this company called Wonder How To. What is Wonder How To? Well, they're this website that mostly focuses on like kind of these like tutorials on how to unlock the secret emoticon keyboard on your iPhone. It's just like consumer stuff. It's not like hacking. It's more like how to unlock features of a device, or just like kind of technology journalism. So Nullbite was always like the strange one, like the weird one in this whole group of stuff. Gadget hacks, next reality, food hacks, like all this stuff was like very much for just like regular, like regular people. Like anybody could be interested in it. But Nullbite was the one that was specifically for hackers. And it was always like poorly understood by the people who owned it. Like they just like didn't really, they're like, like this is the weird one. Like we don't really make money off of it. So eventually this company went under. And so in the interim, I also made the YouTube channel and it became very successful. I was the one behind the YouTube channel. I uploaded a video at a DEF CON pool party that started that channel by accident from my work account. So, and then I was the one who worked for free to pioneer that format and like get it so that they would be willing to pay us even like a small amount of money to produce it. So like after all that work, Wonder How To went under. During the pandemic, they didn't do well. And my company, Veronis, was, well, the company I work for, Veronis, was going to purchase it. But Wonder How To didn't want to be reasonable. They wanted like a lot of money for Nullbite. And then they ended up floundering and selling it off to another company that does ad placement. So because of that, kind of a long story, but figure I'd get it all on the record. Because of that, this unknown like weird like technologyadvice.com like ad company like owns all of my old content on Nullbite, and they have no idea what to do with it because it is a stinky asset. Our videos would get taken down all the time. It's hard to get people to do content like that. If you start producing other types of content, people are just going to unsubscribe and just ruin it. So like if I was them, I wouldn't know what to do with it either, but I do because I made it. So I'm hoping that maybe in the future they'll kind of figure out that like this thing actually sucks to have. Like, do you want to run it? And then maybe we could put our ads on the channel, which is kind of what I suggested to them. So in the future, you might see Nullbite start up again, but whether or not I'm involved will become immediately obvious as you watch the channel. If it just is a bunch of like weird marketing stuff and the person's all like stiff and it's like not me, then like just be aware the channel's been taken over by corporate people and it's no longer cool. So there you go. So yeah, it's really funny. I've been on Nullbite and I've been on Hack5. And when I went to New York, I went into a pizza place immediately after like I landed and said hello to the team at Veronis. And the guy at the pizza place was just kind of like staring at me, and like I thought like maybe he had like an issue or like he didn't like me. But no, he literally recognized me from Nullbite. So like it was just so bizarre because where I live, it's never happened that anybody recognizes me from that channel. But the guy who worked at the pizza store, Mohammed, by the way, I remember you. You're great. Was super, super nice and told me that he learned a lot of like interesting stuff from the Nullbite channel. And he was like blown away that I was there. So it was really cool that people still do see that channel. They recognize it. I just don't have any control over it. And that's why I'm very hesitant to like work with anyone. I like working with Veronis a lot. They've built a lot of trust with me. But like even Hack5, like I was working with them as of last year and they took down a bunch of our content and now I don't work with them. So I'm very leery about like working on third-party channels sometimes. And that's why I'm going to be focusing on my own channel, Redia, for some of the content that I used to put on like Hack5, for example. So stay tuned for that. All right, so how about a little bit of drama? So I've been telling you guys that you should go to the Discord server for a while now. And I'm like, yeah, check out our Discord server. It's on nugget.lol. So what happens if we go to nugget.lol? I'm actually afraid. Yep, nothing. So why is it down? What happened? So nugget.lol is just a forwarding domain. It's just a domain that forwards to our Discord invite. It's just like a short way for me to share the link, which by the way, I will share in the chat. So why is this down? Well, some friendly person decided to list the .lol domain, the nugget.lol domain, as a spam domain in a spam blocker list, which causes your domain registrar to automatically suspend your domain. So if you ever wanted to waste like 3 days of someone's time, that's pretty much the best way to do it. Is you can get like a URL basically taken down by having it added to these lists. And the reason why this works is because the people that maintain and like verify these lists they seem like volunteers. Like the websites look older than Craigslist, and they don't get back to you for a very long time. So if your domain mistakenly gets added to their list of blocked domains or of spam domains, then it triggers a chain of events that can only be resolved by going through this like ancient website and trying to get the spam designation taken down. So what's interesting here is like also you can have your domain like included in a spam email or a link included in a spam email, and there's nothing you can do about it. You know, like if a spam email gets reported and it contains your URL, then it can just get taken down. And on top of this, there's also a company that does predictive like Precrime like analysis on URLs. And if it's like a .lol domain or something that's suspicious, it's like, this one's going to pop off soon. Like it's going to be malicious. Like let's just block that one preemptively. So when I put this website into VirusTotal, it came up as malicious from one vendor that was doing like pre-crime analysis. So this was all very, very like trippy to me. Like I didn't know that you could like, for one, just waste someone's time by reporting their URL as spam to like an inefficient organization that has sway in the community. Like getting like a URL automatically yoinked because like somebody said that it was spam is pretty crazy. Again, it's just our like forwarding URL. So it's like, it's no big deal. I'll just post the full link to the chat. Let me see if I have it. Yes, here it is. But I found it to be a little bit of a surprise. So if you're wondering what happened to our usual invite link, it is down because somebody decided it was spam. All right, I am generating a new link and it is going to be in the chat. So thank you for being patient. I know that there were some people in our Discord community saying that it took maximum effort to get there. So thank you to everybody who like fought to get access to our Discord community. It didn't need to be that way, but unfortunately, it's taken quite some time to actually get this fixed. All right, so other stuff. If anybody else is into urban exploration, it's often a balance of like safety and exposure and like all these other things where like you never know if an area is going to be like really just like open for exploration or if it's going to be very clearly off limits and guarded. I have to say New York is wild. There's a lot of huge abandoned buildings there that have no visible security and no signs that say you should keep out. Obviously, it's kind of implied, and I would never go into an area that said no trespassing. However, I will say that there's some incredible spots in New York for urban exploration, and I want to give a shout out to the people at the Hackerspace for introducing me to some great spots. Oh yeah, and here we go. So this is our pre-crime analysis of our nugget.lol domain. Pre-crime, malicious. Like literally this has never been included in anything other than our stream and then like just sharing to people who are asking for our Discord server. So yes, there's a number of ways your website can get taken down, even if it's not malicious at all, just because of these like tools that try to predict crime in the future. And then also these like tools that try to report spam URLs, but then have like very, very slow processes for getting them remediated. So I shared this. This is my favorite electronics meme of the week. This is how to make a portable fast charger using just 3 components. If anybody wants to explain in the chat why this is cursed, this is actually a hand warmer. It's its primary function, but the other thing that it does is also charge a phone. I will explain this momentarily if nobody in the chat knows why this is terrible. All right, so another thing is I've done a lot of videos on, for example, Nullbite, how you can use your phone to explore Wi-Fi networks. In fact, often I was like going to my dentist office recently, and there's always stuff on my dentist office network that's not supposed to be there. And I find it with my phone because I'm not hauling my laptop there. So I have been ragging on people that use iPhones for a long time because they cannot do effective network scans. If you have an iPhone, you cannot scan and get the manufacturer of a device on a network reliably because Apple thinks that that would be like a scary thing for you to have access to. So it's like seeing MAC addresses on a network is like not allowed. You can't do it. And you can't even like ask permissions to do it. It's just forbidden. That sucks. Like for a networking person, not being able to look at a MAC address is like kind of a big deal. So I've been gloating that Android is pretty good at this. That is until my favorite networking tool popped in with this. So it says, Android 10 limits apps from accessing the list of MAC addresses. We're working on a solution to resolve the issue. Do you want to identify devices by IP address? MAC addresses that were previously discovered will be preserved. This sucks. So let me explain why this sucks. And some networking people can jump in as well. But basically, if you're looking at a network and all you have is the IP address, I describe the two as like a MAC address is like a license plate, and then like a IP address is like a parking spot. So like the same device with, you know, a MAC address that's going to be relatively consistent may park in different spots according to what's available. Like it's really like the IP address doesn't mean anything when it comes to like what device it is in particular. If you have a device, if you have a network that's like dynamically allocated and like, you know, devices are coming and going, especially on like a coffee shop network or a network with a lot of devices coming and going, like Wi-Fi, like you're gonna get a different like IP address every day. So this, in my opinion, makes a lot of network scanning trash and unreliable. For example, what am I going to use this for? Well, I'm going to use it to try to like locate the 3D printer on my network. Well, if I unplug it and plug it back in and it's somewhere else, I'm going to have a pretty hard time identifying it if I can't see the MAC address and know, for example, it's a Raspberry Pi. So I hate this. As a researcher, as a networking person, this makes like a mobile device so much worse for using for network analysis. I haven't dug too much into the privacy policy that's being changed here. It doesn't make explicit references to hiding the MAC address table, but there are a lot of changes like revolving around MAC addresses. One of the things I do like is MAC address randomization. I've had this on my phone forever. It used to be an optional thing, but now it does it by default. So the reason that this is important is when you are out and about, your MAC address is an identifier. It allows people to track you. It's like a license plate, like I said. So in this case, if you are connecting to a network you don't trust, or if you are just out and about, like your phone will automatically create a random MAC address that's much more difficult to track. That's the idea. So there are some other, like they got some restrictions of non-resettable device identifier, like stuff like that. Again, I haven't seen anything in here that specifically says anything in reference to the MAC address table. Like I'm not totally sure like why, because this is configured Wi-Fi networks. Oh yeah, okay, this could absolutely be it. Yeah, so anyway, I'm just noticing that like some of the things that used to make Android special in that you could get more information, you could do better scans with networking devices, it seems like they are not going to be as useful anymore. Okay, so I have a assertion. No, a MAC address is the vehicle and IP is your temporary license. That's an interesting way of putting it. Yeah, I guess I could see that. I just like to visualize like a Wi-Fi access point as like a parking lot with a limited number of spaces, and each one is an IP address. And that kind of explains like, okay, like while you are in this parking lot, like parked with your vehicle, your device, you are issued a spot, and that spot could change. If you leave and then someone else comes in and pulls in, then you would have to pick a different spot. And that's how I kind of explain like DHCP to like kids and stuff. You change the vehicle and get a new license every day. Yeah. Okay. Well, that seems like a lot of trips to the DMV, but yeah. Oh, and okay. Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much to everybody that suffered through like a little mini OSINT quiz to get the Discord link. I really do appreciate that you ended up in our Discord community, and I'm sorry it was so difficult, but I've spent multiple days now trying to get the short link fixed, so we'll see what happens. All right, and last up on just the kind of updates. So me and my team are going to be going to the DEF CON conference. We are going to be in the vendor area for the third, maybe fourth row in the fourth year in a row, sorry. And this year we are not going to be at the Hack 5 table. We are going to be working with Hacker Warehouse. So Hacker Warehouse has been one of the places I go to buy all my hacker stuff for quite some time. So I'm really excited to get to hang out with that crew and get to be at the Hacker Warehouse table with some interesting, new, and unique things this year. So one of them is the beginner soldering board that my team designed for a cyber camp that I taught earlier this year for the state of Montana. It was awesome, and the kids really enjoyed it. It was an easy badge to solder together, and it's quite interactive. It has 3 potentiometers that allow you to tune the color on the front, so the cat's eyes turn to basically whatever color you want to tune them to. And what's funny is when the kids were soldering them together, they kind of like, they made a couple like soldering connections they shouldn't have, and they ended up with like cats that have like different colored eyes, where when you tuned it, it would actually turn one eye a slightly different color, or like I don't know. It was pretty easy to fix, but the kids actually liked it so much that they insisted on keeping them that way. So the badges are really cool, and even if you mess them up, like you still end up with a unique one that maybe like it does like different colored eyes instead of like both having the same color eyes. So Angelina is the one that worked on this. I have to give her a great shout out for this. This is actually looking through the back of the board. The boards have a green solder mask, so I turned the light, tuned the light to green, and the Meow Mixer became semi like translucent, and I could see through, and you can see all the solder, the PCB connections here. So we're going to be selling these. I think these kits are going to be really cheap. They're going to be like 20, 25 bucks. And the Soldering Skills Village would be happy to help you out with soldering them together. So that's just one of the things we're going to be doing at DEF CON. We also have a secret thing that I haven't mentioned at all. And the reason I haven't mentioned it is because I don't like to shout out things. I don't like to shout out things that might not work. So, all right, let me go back to my main screen. So this is a printed circuit board for something we're going to be doing at DEF CON, or at least we're trying to do at DEF CON. No promises. I don't want to make promises I don't keep. But this is the foundation of a kind of laser tag style game that we're going to be playing at the conference. That should be super fun and have a couple hidden like clues and elements that you'll have to work with other people to figure out. So we're calling it Nugget Quest. So if you want to learn more about that, make sure to come by and check out the Hacker Warehouse booth. Also, I will drop details in our Discord community as we start getting set up. But I've been doing a lot of surface mount soldering of the tails here, and also just general assembly and making sure that we don't like fry anyone's computers with the power supply on these. So Nugget Quest is going to be pretty cool. It's going to be kind of laser tag style. So if you like laser tag, if you like interacting with other people, solving puzzles and stuff, then it's going to be really fun. We'll also have that at the Hacker Warehouse booth. I'm also going to be a goon this year, which means I get to work with the conference as a press liaison. Basically, I get to work with the press, take them on tours, introduce them to people, and that's going to be really cool. So the last couple of years, my team has been the guides for the Norwegian Institute of Journalism, who are some of the nicest, friendliest journalists ever. This year, I get to deal with everyone. So I get to be potentially the person telling like news groups that they can't come back, especially if we find them like violating the code of conduct or like doing anything they're not supposed to do or just being sneaky. So it's going to be fun. I just have to remember that we work with some of the best journalists in the world, in my opinion, in the last couple of years. They're polite, they're inquisitive, they use all the sources we give them. Like they produce phenomenal content. So like working with like basically anyone with the press pass at DEF CON is going to be a new experience, but I'm excited for it. I like working with the press generally, but I've heard some stories about how pushy some of the press can be. But we'll see. So you'll catch me at the conference, both leading press, like tours and interviews. You will see me at the Hacker Warehouse booth. And then if you're going to Black Hat, I'm going to be at the Verona's booth. And if you want to be in some of these videos, we're going to be asking a couple fun security-related questions for a prize. So yeah, hopefully we'll see you at the Verona's Black Hat booth, which I'm going to be. You guys, I'm leaving tomorrow. Like literally, I'm leaving tomorrow. I'm going to be soldering stuff like all weekend in Los Angeles with the rest of my team. Then I'm going to be going to Las Vegas for Black Hat and then straight on to DEF CON. So it is going to be a long and intense trip. I'm going to meet a lot of hackers. Oh, and if you're looking for me, look for the Readiest shirt and then a bright colored mask, because last year one of my team got COVID. It's not going to be me. It seems like he was really suffering. So yeah, we will see you all at the conference, hopefully. It's always funny because, like I said, I never get recognized for doing the Nullbite YouTube channel like in my day-to-day life. It just never happens. But then if I go to a big city or if I go to a hacker conference, like everyone is there. So definitely, if you see me, feel free to say hello. I love talking to people and saying hi, especially if like my channel meant something to you. Like I really got a lot of pushback on it when I first started making it. So it's great to hear that, you know, I was right and people did value it and it ended up being a useful thing. Yes, I will be so worn out. It's going to be crazy. Oh yes. Another shout out to so again, the Verona's marketing team really like knocked out of the park with this conference that we did. We went to New York and we got to like kind of brainstorm on some conferences coming up. I thought we came up with some really excellent ideas, but also they did like a whole like 90s theme that was like very, very thorough. I was eating like candy that I haven't had for a very long time. And this was also one of the things that they put together. There's also, I think I have a new sticker. Yes, I have a new sticker that's very like 90s theme that Verona's earned their place by just like doing some pretty clever marketing stuff. So the team of marketing people at Verona's is super fun. They have lots of cool ideas and they're like not like they have to do some corporate stuff, but they're not very stiff, which I really like. It reminds me more of when I've worked at startups, which I think is cool. So yeah, like overall, like I was really, really pleased with the conference and like the swag that we got. This is like one of my favorite Verona shirts that they've made so far. Yeah, I'm gonna be so worn out, you guys. By the time, like, I am trying to do so many things at the same time. Like, this game is killing me. Like, my team has been working so hard on this, and like, of course, we're not even done, you know. So, we're definitely gonna be worn out at the conference. So, if we look a little tired, or if we're walking in like a formation, cutting through the crowd, like, just be considerate that like we might just be at the end of our rope and just needing to get some food. But again, say hi. Like I definitely don't mind saying hi. I love seeing people that like the same things. And like I said, I usually have to go to like hacker spaces to meet other nerds. The fact that it's just a free for all at DEF CON, like, you know, if you've got ideas, if you've got suggestions, like, you know, it's the time to talk. So unless I'm going to the bathroom or imminently getting food. Anyway, yeah, so hopefully we will see okay. Oh, cool. Okay, I almost forgot. Yeah, let's go back. Let's go back to my thing. So electronics people, what is cursed about this particular circuit diagram? So we have a 9-volt battery going into like a linear regulator, and it's then going into a 5-volt USB. So we're taking a 9-volt battery and we're stepping down the voltage to 5 volts, and then we're feeding it to the device, right? Like, what could go wrong? Like a linear regulator gets rid of the excess voltage, not by like through some sort of like fancy like electronic conversion. It just burns it. So you're basically taking like a 9-volt source, which doesn't have that much power in it anyway. It's just at a higher voltage, like a 9-volt source, and then you are like burning off like a good portion of it into just literally heat, and the rest of it goes into the USB. So you're basically getting rid of like 50% ish of the power that's flowing through it purely as heat. So like the majority of the energy in the battery is going to be directly converted to heat, and it's going to get so hot so fast that without like a massive heat sink, you would not possibly be able to dissipate the the heat energy that's coming off of this thing. Yeah, exactly. So it's like a 1% battery boost, and like a nice red mark on your hand. That is exactly what it is. This is like a very short hand warmer that will increase your phone battery by 1%. Again, this is the kind of thing that's like cursed because the beginner electrical student would see no problems with this. They'd be like, yeah, okay, so you have a device that converts like this to that, but the specifics here really matter. How does the linear regulator like convert it? Well, it burns the excess energy. It's not using it usefully. So like anybody who's like, you know, like a little bit more than a beginner electronics person would look at this and be like, where's the extra power going? Do we have a plan for that? No? Okay, well, we're just like dumping the battery then and converting it mostly to heat while like perking up the phone for a second. Like it's just a very, very silly thing to do. So isn't it good since it's supposed to make heat? If your goal is to make a lot of heat, there are faster ways. You could just connect the two terminals of the battery together, and that would just cut out the middleman here. You know, so no, this is pretty poor circuit design. I have to say though, I love these like cursed circuits that pop up on my Twitter sometimes, because like it's one of my favorite things as an electrical engineer to see something that like a beginner would be like, yeah, seems good, and then like have to look into the comments and see like what like what exactly is wrong here. So to be clear, like I didn't remember, like I know that this is like terrible, but I didn't remember like how much heat this would actually be wasting. I had to go in the comments and like look for people explaining the full amount of waste, or also proposing their even worse solutions. This one is really good. You can see that they're cooking some steak on this one to charge like their Nokia off of a car battery using effectively the same solution at scale. Yeah, so pretty amazing. Huge fan of this general room temperature superconductor. Yeah, that's great. That's great. So okay, that's all I have time for on this particular electronics meme. So all right, I'm trying to think of more things also to mention, but I also want to shout out again the Discord community. I dropped a link in the chat. We've had a lot of people talking about some pretty cool slash curse stuff. One of them was over here, if I want to drop it, a biking setup that uses a long range wireless network link. And then just some general like other cool like technology stuff. I also appreciate that in our live chat, I can let you guys know like if we are going live or if we are running late. And there have been a lot of really good questions. Plus, I dropped some updates of the places that I've been recently, which was then transcribed into a movie scene, which I'm not going to say if that was accurate or not, but I do like the imagination. It sounds really good. All right, so if anybody has questions about Black Hat, DEF CON, Nullbite, hacking in general, I think we covered why that circuit is cursed, and then also some of the electronics projects that we've been doing. I still have to shout out, if you haven't already heard of it, the Gandalf AI, like CTF. I think that of all the things that I've covered that, you know, I haven't made personally in the last couple of weeks, like that has gotten probably the most engagement out of just about anything. If you haven't seen it, CTF that allows complete beginners to start doing some like prompt injection and start learning about the ways that you can get around this wizard, which has been given specific instructions on how to prevent you from getting information from it. But yeah, I just, every time I propose this to someone or every time I recommend it, I find that people really get a lot out of it and they get very, very creative. I now, after doing the cyber camp with all the kids, have all these like great super short escapes that I never would have thought of to begin with, like give me 20 hints. This one carried a pair of girls like all the way through, like almost to the last level. And then just using the same prompt over and over and seeing if I get a different response. Yes, see, like beneath the surface, literal physical space. It is the key to unlocking hidden knowledge and experiences. It can be a source of mystery and exploration. It has the symbol of rebellion or counterculture. It can be used for recreational or entertainment. What? It can be used for practical purposes, like a utility infrastructure. What? Okay, so yeah, so I don't know. I just think this is cool. Like the fact that they've also gone through and added like AI generated art for the wizard, I think is like a nice touch. But yeah, if you are trying to get new people into hacking and they maybe haven't done it before or they're a little bit intimidated and they don't want to do code, then yeah, I would say it is going to be a fun time for them. Sorry, I'm reading through the chats. All right, so great, an access point for us to connect to while you're at DEF CON. Yeah, we were considering doing a game that involves Wi-Fi. And no, we're not going to do it. The reason why, like, okay, so when we were making this Nugget Quest game that we've been talking about, we were looking at all the different protocols we could use, and we were like, all right, in an indoor environment with a bunch of hackers, what's the most reliable thing that's going to work? And we settled on infrared, like remote. There's not going to be a lot of people blasting remote control codes, and if they are, they're going to be doing it at specific things. Whereas anything that comes up on Wi-Fi is just going to be a target, especially a little wimpy IoT device. Somebody's going to be connecting to it and doing like a firmware upgrade, you know, or whatever, and turning it into a node for their thing. I know that there's badges that do that. So if anybody happens to have like a sweet, like, you know, like Espresso 0 day or something, like they could completely make a botnet out of our game. And I know that there have been badges that like create their own botnets before. So we decided not to do that. But yeah, so our game ended up being infrared focused. It just seemed like the most reliable protocol that we could pick. Jon Snow, did you get a haircut? Yes, I did. I sure did. It was expensive, but the people who did it were nice. And ever since my hairdresser has gone into hiding, which is a long story, I'll tell it another time, I have not had a haircut. So it's been like 6 months or so. My hair was getting really long and very country, and it was time. Another question was, any chance you'll be selling extra Nugget PCBs? Actually, so supply and demand is crazy. And in preparation for DEF CON, we found that the majority of people really want assembled PCBs or like assembled nuggets because they like the soldering skills village is going to be swamped. Like it's like they might not have time to put it together. And there's lots of other things that also require assembly. So we've been doing it ourselves. I am sitting in a workshop of like soldering equipment and like measuring, like literally, let me turn this. I've got like a temperature sensor, got a bunch of helpless hands for holding boards. I've been using this heat gun on my table to like surface mount solder stuff. So we've been like putting together the majority of the stuff that's going to be at DEF CON, so much so that we are almost out of Nugget boards. I'm going to have to order more of them, and they definitely won't arrive before the conference. So we will have Nuggets galore, and we will also have, you know, our Nugget Quest game, as well as our, oh, it's right here, as well as our Meow Mixer boards. There's so much going on here. But yeah, so we will have lots of stuff at DEF CON. It will be lots of fun. However, the raw PCBs, will probably not be one of them, just because they become like the rarest thing at my house, because any PCB that gets found just gets soldered together into something and put into a bag. We're kind of going all out on DEF CON. It's going to be pretty crazy. All right. Let's see. All right, so a question from earlier: is my tractor going to have Doom? I think that tractors are notorious in the hacker community for being like closed source and full of bugs. The companies behind a lot of these agricultural like machinery like are very resistant to having people modify, change, update, like really do any maintenance like that's not through that company. So I know this is an ironic question, but like actually tractors have a reputation in the hacker community for being like prime targets for getting hacked. Mostly because they're closed source, and anytime we get a peek under the hood, like both literally and metaphorically, we find like tons of vulnerabilities and lots of things that could be exploited because they're not peer reviewed and they're not really like up to very much scrutiny. So if I wanted to hack into a tractor, for one, it's a huge area of study, because agricultural hacking, making the right to repair available for farmers who like purchase this equipment and then can't modify, update, or repair it, that kind of stuff sucks. And like a lot of hackers have taken it up as a cause. So of all the things that I could run Doom on, I think a tractor at this point would be pretty high up on the list, just due to the amount of scrutiny that they've gotten and how many people they've attracted because of this like right to repair issue. So if you haven't seen it, there's a lot of coverage on like hacker like farmers like figuring out how to get into their tractors and like be able to repair them and do all the stuff that usually costs tons of money in order to, you know, be able to afford things and like survive. So kind of an interesting subject. And I feel like I would get a lot of help at DEF CON if I wanted to run Doom on my tractor. Let's see. Needs an IR phone for a camera. Yeah, exactly. So my old Pixel phone, before I blew it up in an experiment, had an infrared camera facing backwards, so I could use my old Pixel phone, flip it around, and like look at IR sources, and like it was actually really cool. I was able to, for example, just do scientific stuff on the go, like tell if like a sign is real neon or not, because real neon pulses in infrared. So if you like flip around like the Pixel 4 XL or whatever it was, and point the infrared camera at a neon sign and then look at it, you can see the neon pulsing in a way that's not immediately like visible, like from the regular like visible spectrum. So really, really cool. There's like a million uses for like an IR camera. But nowadays we got a flipper. So like my biggest contender for not having this game get ruined is the fact that everybody's gonna have a flipper zero, or at least a lot of people are, and it's super IR capable and has a lot of things that make it pretty easy. So like I think that there's like 100% chance that like you could use Flipper to like interact with the game that we're creating, and we're kind of hoping to plan it that way a little bit instead of you know, have just be like act surprised when it happens. All right. Let me pull this comment up. Are there more than one use case to using a smart square? I don't know what a smart square is. You're gonna have to show me because I don't have a lot of IoT devices. Mostly because of what I know about them and Wi-Fi. So my you guys remember Michael. So my former co-host Michael also used to live with me, and he had all these IoT devices constantly connected to the network, like updating and making traffic and doing stuff. And it was very hard to like keep track of them at a certain point and like see if any of them were doing anything they weren't supposed to do. So I, as a rule, try not to have too many IoT devices. For one, because I don't care about them, and for two, because they are vulnerable and I like to hack them. So often I'm taking them apart and otherwise doing stuff I'm not supposed to do. Are we in a simulation? Yes, we are in a simulation. I'm sorry. Oh, sorry, I'm not supposed to say that. No, we're not in a simulation. It's all real, and don't ask that question again on my stream. Okay. I think that we are a good amount of the way through the stream. I'll take questions as they come in. I wanted to also, mentioned that, so I've been traveling a lot, right? And one of the things that's interesting is the way that Wi-Fi security on planes has evolved. Like there are a number of things that hackers have done in the past to get free Wi-Fi, and I've made a couple of Nullbite articles about them. And it's pretty easy. Like for the most part, like if you're able to scan and then find a device that has connectivity and is using it and then clone a MAC address, like you're used to be able to get around this stuff, but it's kind of stopped working now. So now there's other ways of getting free Wi-Fi in planes that have evolved. And like the hackers that I were talking to were telling me that like nowadays, like they don't even mess with the Wi-Fi. Most of the time there's like a cell carrier that's like offering like free Wi-Fi on a plane, but only if you are like a subscriber. So because they assume you don't have like phone reception, they can't really check to make sure, like send you a text or something and confirm. So like some people I've mentioned are also just like using random phone numbers in their phone book until they find one that has the correct carrier and then just getting free Wi-Fi that way. So like sometimes the services that get stacked on top end up being more vulnerable than like these old school attacks that used to work. But yeah, like now I've kind of seen the evolution of the way people are starting to like hack while they're flying. But if anybody knows any good resources, I've become kind of more interested in this lately just because it's been a while since I really did much networking study on the kinds of avionics and the kinds of things that are in airplanes. So yeah, if anybody has any interesting techniques, it's something that I've been interested in as some of the old ones have not worked as well. What am I eating before my trip? So there's a pizza place out here that is fantastic. And I think that for anywhere, not just Montana, it has some of the best pizza ever. So that's where I'm going. Then in Los Angeles, I'm going to be going to Slurpin' Ramen, which in my opinion is the best ramen place that I know of ever. So if you're in LA, Slurpin' Ramen, excellent. All right, so I think we are most of the way through. Nobody even asked me what I got to do on the Verona's trip. Well, I'm going to tell you anyway. So on the Verona's trip, I got to learn a lot about like what their new stuff is, how they're moving to the cloud and doing a lot of like data protection stuff that sounds like fantasy, but actually works. It's just like remediation automatically and some of these other things that everybody needs. And then they took us on a boat tour. So I got to go in a big old storm around New York and see everything, including Statue of Liberty. So it's kind of cool. It was like my third time ever in New York, getting to be flown out there and see the city, meet the hackers, like learn more about the company I work for, but I'm very remote. So sometimes I don't get to see them, was awesome. And I really enjoyed it. So it's going to be cool doing Black Hat coming up and getting to work with some more people. And again, if you come by the Verona's booth at Black Hat, it's going to be super fun. We have a lot of interesting research that we're going to be like talking about and some cool people there. And I think we've also got some gift cards for people who want to come and try answering some like cool, tricky cybersecurity questions with us. So yeah, it'll be fun. How was my trip? My trip was good. Honestly, I went to North Carolina before. So I think you guys might, or some of you guys might have caught the live stream that I did not last week, but the week before. So I was in the Verona's North Carolina office and it was a little tricky to get like everything. I like had my phone on the stream as well, which I'd never done before. That was spooky. But I was able to like walk around and show you guys the Verona's office in North Carolina. It is so huge. It's like 3 stories. It's massive. It's really nice. Has a huge kitchen, like lots of like, they have a swing in the middle of like the main presentation room. So like if you like need some stimulation during a meeting, you can just start swinging. It was wild. It was really, really cool. And then I got to go to the New York office, which was a single floor, very businessy, but like the views were like amazing. It's in like Midtown Manhattan, New York. So like the food around there is incredible. But I will have to say, like it was so many people and such just like pressure of just like humans around me all the time. I found it a little bit overwhelming, especially after being like out in the sticks for like quite some time. So my trip was really good though. Getting to get back in the swing of talking to people again after like just not running into that many people for a while was definitely a challenge, but I feel like it's kind of like warmed me up for the conference and I'm excited that I got to go. Sounds like a cool place to work. Yeah, dude. So I didn't want the job at Verona's originally. Like it was around the time that my YouTube channel was getting taken down because like, like ethical hacking stuff was just being targeted a lot back then. And Rob, the person who's in charge of marketing at Verona's, like reached out to me. He's like, hey, I see your stuff's getting taken down. I think it's fantastic. Like, would you want to work with us? And it's just like, I just worked at Uber. Like, I don't want to do the corporate thing right now. Like, they were just like so awful. Like, I just don't want to do it, you know? And I went to a couple conferences and I met Verona's people. I met like Haley, who does like social media and like event planning there, and some other people. And I just asked them questions like, hey, do you feel like you can talk to anyone in this organization? Like, do you feel like if you had a burning question, like, you know, or like a problem, like you feel comfortable like telling your manager that or reaching out? And they're like, yeah, no, like I wouldn't just like fire an email to the CEO on like 2 a.m. for like a, you know, an idea I had in the middle of the night. But like, yeah, you know, like I would talk to anybody else in the company. It doesn't feel stuffy. I was like, okay, that's the opposite of my last experience at a corporate place. And like, maybe I'll check this out. So I decided that I was interested. I like kind of like wanted to know how corporate they were going to make this. And like, you guys, we're almost done with the stream. And how much corporate stuff have I told you? Like, we even get into most Black Hat actually denied our press application, so I'm gonna have to talk to them. But we get into most conferences as press or content creators because we make genuinely good, useful content that's, aside from the little like sponsored by Verona's logo, it's like it's not really branded. Like, we don't force you to listen to like advertisements or whatever. So yeah, like we really worked hard to make this like a useful, cool, and authentic place for people to share their knowledge and to hang out with other hackers. That's what it's called, Hacking with Friends. And they've been so awesome about like supporting me through making this. They've given me a tremendously free hand, and everybody that I've worked with has been like super nice and like has like understood my brain to the point that I don't have to explain myself as I find I have in the past. I've worked at a place before when I first started doing hacker content where one of my managers, if I was, you know, 2-3 minutes late or something, will be like, well, where were you? You're late again. You know, that would be how our meetings would start. So just having like relaxed people who understand what I'm good at, like support me on it, has really always been the goal. And Veronis has been like pretty fantastic for that. So they've also given me some great tools. So making sure I have a decent laptop, making sure that I have good video equipment to record this with, the microphone up here that's making it so you can actually hear me. I hear that Killian maybe needs an upgrade in his microphone, but I don't know. Like I've seen him with some pretty good stuff. So yeah, generally, like I've been well equipped, well supported, and uninterfered with. And you guys, I've literally never had a job like that before, where like, you know, like people understand what you're good at and just try to support you doing it. And I don't have beef with any of my coworkers, which, I mean, I guess if I did, I probably wouldn't say it here anyway. But the fact that like, you know, nobody has like tried to step on my feet or like really like created an issue for me in the entire time I've been here, it's pretty cool. So yeah, like, I really like this job. Of all of the companies that I've worked for, I think that it's probably the most like powerful ally that I've ever had, which is very cool. Any plans to head to the land down under? Sorry for fumbling your pun there. That was a really good one. I would love to. Australians are a great time. I remember almost getting kicked out of Mexico with some Australians one time. But yeah, I would love to do that. I don't like the heat that much, so let me know when your winter is, and I will check that out. Because yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff in Australia and New Zealand. Aren't they like the same place? I'm kidding. I'm just trying to make you mad. Yeah. There was KiwiCon, which I really wanted to go to. I know that Australia and New Zealand are different, but like, you know, for me, it's one trip. So I was looking at KiwiCon. I don't know if they're still doing it. I would love an excuse to go to Australia, though. It seems like it would be, you know, I'm used to things trying to eat me too. Like I live in a place with bears and whatever else. So like, it's just the bugs. I'm not used to trying to eat me, I guess. Let's see. DEF CON will be interesting. Are you sure you signed up for Liaison? What? Yeah, I am sure that I'm signed up to be a press liaison. And it's going to be quite something, because if I have to kick out, you know, some random news agency that's trying to find like somebody to say something dumb that they can sensationalize, like it's going to be awkward. But I also worked as a bouncer at the Echoplex in Los Angeles, kind of a sketchy venue sometimes. So I have had to tell many famous people that they cannot do things, and I feel like after the stress of that, telling a journalist that I barely care about that they can't come to our party, like that seems fine. All right, so here's the technical question. I can't capture handshakes in WPA 3 like in WPA 2. Yes, that is the primary reason to switch over to WPA 3. WPA 3 is a new standard of Wi-Fi security, and as a researcher that studies Wi-Fi, it's so much harder to mess with. Like there's still things you can do to crash it or mess with it, but fundamentally it's much better protected than any version of Wi-Fi we've ever had before. Most of the old attacks just will not work anymore. Now you can do downgrade attacks, you can do other stuff to it that, you know, might still get you access to the network, but fundamentally a Wi-Fi connection between a client and an access point that's secured with WPA3 is very difficult to attack. You can still, like, again, like there's ways of getting around it. Like you can pretend to be a device that only supports WPA2 and then try to get a handshake from that same network via like, you know, something else. Like, and that's possible. Like you could do that. However, it would be substantially more difficult than what is the current standard, which is just, you know, waiting for someone to connect, capturing the handshake, and then attempting to brute force it. That process will probably never be as straightforward again. Now, I have been doing a lot of research into research done by Matthew Van Hoff, which is using beacon frames to attack networks and do all sorts of chaotic stuff. But these are even authenticated in WPA3, I believe, which is part of the design of the system. Like they're trying to get rid of things that are unauthenticated or unencrypted and make it so that it is harder to use them to change the behavior of Wi-Fi devices. That being said, I think the field of like malicious beacon attacks is wide open, and that's probably where I'm going to be focusing a lot of my team's like R&D, like in the next like couple months, using like microcontrollers like the ESP8266. Like I believe it should be possible to construct and send malicious beacons, which do spooky and weird stuff to Wi-Fi devices, and it should be pretty broadly applicable. So we'll see. It's going to be an interesting field for the next couple of years while WPA3 is integrated into people's, you know, like daily security systems. Because right now, I would say the majority of people like have not gotten any sort of automatic update to WPA3. They have to manually select it or buy a very new device in order to get that experience. That was creepy, me talking like that manager. Yeah, I don't know how to start a conversation with someone who's like accusing you of being lazy effectively. You know, like it's very hard to build a bridge or like have a conversation with someone who's just like venting on you or like accusing you of stuff. So like I just, every time I've had a manager or like a work interaction where someone I feel like is angry with me or they're yelling at me or whatever else, I just leave. Like, you know, because either I'm terrible at my job or like they have issues beyond the scope of what the current work is. So like if I can't have a conversation with someone at work and resolve things, I really feel like something is like wrong with the workplace. And I've removed myself or like, you know, allowed myself to be removed from places where I don't feel comfortable like having a conversation with someone because they have no conflict resolution skills and they're not interested in resolving the conflict. So yes, big red flags. If you have a manager that does that, I've always been happier moving on. You know, some people don't have the luxury of being able to move on from positions like that, but I've always looked for the door as soon as I'm like spoken to in like an angry fashion by someone who, you know, like it just doesn't make sense. All right. Here's another question. So exploits just disappear after an upgrade. Sheesh, my Linux shell is prone to constant seg faulting without even clicking a button on this platform. I mean, after you run an update, then yeah, like you will no longer be able to do a thing that was previously vulnerable. And this actually comes up for me whenever I used to do the Nullbite like show. Like I would have a breaking vulnerability that I would want to demonstrate for everyone. And because it was like a big priority, like it would get force patched or like it would get like updated in the background. So by the time I would start to try to record the video, my Linux distribution or my whatever like vulnerable box would automatically update itself and it would become impossible to show it off. And I would have wasted a production person's time for an hour. So no chance to get deauth WPA3. You can't deauth WPA3. You can't. It doesn't work. You can do other types of protocol-based attacks that like cause like a jamming effect, but you cannot do deauthentication. And the reason is deauthentication packets are a packet from the router to the device or vice versa that say disconnect from the network. Like I basically like let's separate from the network. And that command has to be obeyed, but it's not authenticated. So anybody can send that command and pretend to be the router or the device. Huge oversight, fixed in WPA3. So now you can't send that unauthenticated. It has to be like encrypted with a key known only to those two devices that are communicating. So as an outside third party, it's no longer possible to actually like attack a WPA3 network. It just doesn't work anymore. So the deauthenticators of the past, so the deauthers, you could just go and like kick everything off. That stuff is going to start working on like 60% of devices, then 40% of devices, then 20% of devices, until we're going to see it like the WPS Pixie attack, where like it might work in like between 20 to 40% of devices, like, and that purely depends on like where you are and like how old the devices are. The older devices, the more it's going to work. And in certain parts of the world, those attacks will continue to work for years and years and years. So like let me be clear. Like, I think that they will be viable attacks for quite some time, but they're not going to be the guaranteed entry into a network. You're going to need to know more about networking to attack Wi-Fi devices in the future. That's a win for Wi-Fi security. But there will always be interesting attacks that can be run that exploit fundamental flaws in the way that these devices communicate. The other thing that I think is crazy is like Wi-Fi is a suggestion. Like, not a lot of people like fully have absorbed that like Wi-Fi runs a little differently and has a different like flavor on almost every different device. Like, because the chipset that does Wi-Fi is like has all these optional elements that like are in the Wi-Fi standard, and you can do them or you might not do them, or you only do them if you need them. And as a result, like Wi-Fi packets like smell differently, like to a network scanner. You can see additional optional elements and things that only certain chipsets will do. And it means that Wi-Fi just has these weird edge cases where like sometimes something will work against like 40% of Wi-Fi devices because it is based on a particular chipset that's really common. That's the underlying Wi-Fi chipset for like a bunch of stuff. Like, it's just a very strange field where trying to treat Wi-Fi as a monolith like doesn't quite work, because we have like the protocols like WPA2, WPA3 that like are most of what you need to know about security with it. But also you have like the weirdness of a bunch of suggestions that device manufacturers are told these are like mandatory and these are optional. And as a result, you get this like patchwork of different capabilities, different transmission protocols, all of which are like allowed under the standard, but they are not the same. So kind of an interesting fact about Wi-Fi is just how different each type of Wi-Fi device implements Wi-Fi. The standard has a lot of optional stuff in it, some of which probably shouldn't have been optional when it was originally made. And that's one of the biggest things that WPA3 has improved, is they've made some of the things mandatory that used to be optional. And as a result, the general standard of security is much higher. Just looked at cursed electronics to deauth. Yeah, so here's the thing. Like, deauthors are problematic. And so I worked with the creator of the deauthor for quite some time, and we would always have this argument about whether or not a deauthor is jamming. And he'd be like, it's not jamming. It's not jamming. But in the field of electronics warfare, like, it absolutely is jamming. So let me explain, because we've got a little bit of time, like why this is a little bit controversial and like what my take on it is. So jamming is the practice of like it's basically a denial of service attack. That's what it is, against like a radio or some communications link. And typically, when somebody thinks about jamming, they think about like sending like a large amount of energy and creating noise on the channel so that nothing can be received. That's like the classic, or like the lowest level of jamming, where you're just creating so much noise it's impossible to be heard on that signal anymore. So that type of jamming is super illegal. And that is not what a deauthor is doing. It is doing Wi-Fi jamming, but it's doing it in a different way, or at least in my opinion, it's doing Wi-Fi jamming. But so Stefan would say, Spaceun would say it's not jamming because it's not making that like huge amount of noise that's preventing any device from connecting. Now, the reason that those sorts of jammers are so illegal, the ones that just create noise, is because it blocks the whole channel. Nobody can communicate. It doesn't just impact one device, it impacts every device attempting to use that spectrum. So basically like shuts down that spectrum to the point that like nobody can use it. So anybody that gets like a cell phone jammer or a Wi-Fi jammer from China that just puts out like noise on the channel, those are super illegal. And that is not what a deauthor is. Now, there's, in electronic warfare, other types of jammers that, for example, use a valid message that creates confusion to create the same sort of effect. So in our case with Wi-Fi, we can use a unauthenticated message, the deauthentication message that says, hey, deauthenticate me or kick me off of this network. I'm leaving, I'm shutting down, I've connected to a network, whatever, like close the connection. Now in WPA2, that message is not authenticated. Anybody can send it and spoof it. So as a result, we can send what's a message that initiates a type of jamming called protocol-based jamming. So protocol-based jammers don't create noise on the system or in the bandwidth that they're targeting. They target a specific device with valid messages that cause an undesired behavior. So in this case, repeated disconnection from the network. So like, while we're not blocking the whole spectrum, we are in fact causing a denial service attack against a device. We're just using a different protocol to do it. So we're, instead of creating noise, we're sending a message that creates bad behavior. Okay, so in this case, like, what's also interesting is the scope. So the reason why deauthentication is legal and jamming is illegal, or like broad spectrum jamming is illegal, is with protocol-based jamming, you can address a message to an individual device and leave all the other devices around intact. Like, you know, because the message is to a single device, it's only obeyed by a single like device on a network, and all the other devices operating on the same spectrum have no problems. Like, they just ignore the message, it's not for them. So that's why these sorts of deauthentication attacks are not implicitly illegal, provided you scope the attack to just the device you're looking to go after. It's fine. Even though I would contend, like, out of the playbook of electronic warfare, this is very clearly a jamming attack. It's just protocol-based and not noise-based. There is some debate here. So if you're going to be talking about deauthentication attacks, jamming attacks, like that sort of thing, like, just make sure you know a little bit about the background, because I would classify this as a jamming attack, but it's not the same kind of jammer that would get you in huge trouble with the FCC. And provided you're using it on a device that you're allowed to jam or allowed to attack, then it is technically fine to do, if very suspicious and very obvious. Now, why do you not want to go and start deauthentication attacks against random devices? Well, it's illegal. So denying service to a device means that you are cutting off the data connection, and that can be illegal in two ways. You can either be damaging a system that needs data to work. That could be a traffic control system, like devices at a hospital, medical monitoring devices in someone's private residence. These are all things that need to connect to data. So if someone starts having a medical emergency and like you've disconnected their like monitor, or you've disconnected like their way of calling for help, like, you're gonna get in a lot of trouble. So yeah, blind deauthentication attacks are a terrible idea. They can get you in tons of trouble. They're very track downable, and they are super obvious. They are not subtle at all. They've been around for such a long time that frankly, like, they're just not a good idea anymore. So can you do it? Yes, you can. Will you get caught? Very easily. And I'm honestly considering making a deauth, like a deauth tracker, like a deauth fox hunter, that like basically like finds devices that are doing deauthentication at the same power level, and then just starts tracking that down. So you could physically walk over to the person and be like, stop. Because it's just that easy, you know, like scanning the airwaves for that unauthenticated message that's transmitted in basically plain text. Like, you're going to be really obvious to anybody who's looking for you. So please do not deauthenticate anything that you don't know. It can probably be it can be infrastructure. And it will also get us in trouble at the conference. So Wi-Fi hacking stuff gets a bad rep because a lot of people are irresponsible and will break other people's stuff. You know, so if there's art, if there's demos at the conference that rely on Wi-Fi to work, going around and using your brand new deauthenticator is a great way to get us blacklisted from selling them at the conference. So yes, please be responsible, and just realize that like people are so used to these sorts of attacks at this point. All right, another question. So these optional things would be a possible attack surface for WPA in the future, or they just basically extras on top of the network. They're add-ons to the packet that indicate special abilities, optional protocols they support, maybe like protocols on top of protocols. So if you have like a specialized protocol for your thing that's like faster than traditional Wi-Fi or is layered on top of it, that would be where you would like mark it. And then specific device identifiers, you know, that like identify like one device to another. Like sometimes you'll find that's injected in the end of packets. You'll just see a lot of like optional elements at the end of a Wi-Fi packet. And these are all often determined by the chipset that is actually doing the transmission and the encoding of the message on the device. So because it's so specific to like the hardware and like how the hardware is actually encoding its Wi-Fi packets and stuff, it's like a fingerprint. I would say it's probably not like an attack vector. It's more like a way you can identify a device, even if it's like throwing off all kinds of chaff and it's changing its MAC address and making itself very hard to identify. You can still track it, theoretically anyway, by the unique fingerprint that its Wi-Fi card is like leaving on all the packets that it creates. All right, Fight Me, which is kind of how I feel about this topic. It says the deauthenticator is 100% a jamming device. The difference between radio jamming and deauthing is just that radio uses frequencies while deauthentication uses MAC address. Yes. Yes. And in this case, again, like protocol-based jamming is a pretty well-established field in electronic warfare. It's like figuring out how a system works and then finding a message that will cause an undesirable effect. And in this case, we're just exploiting that by doing it over and over and over. What is the best way to track a deauthentication attack? Nmap? That's a great question. I would not use Nmap for that. That is going to be a Kismet or a Wireshark kind of thing. So if it was me, I would go into Wireshark. I would start listening on the network that's being attacked for all traffic in or out. I would look for the deauthentication attacks, and then I would like right mouse click on them and create a quick filter. So I'm only seeing deauth attacks. And then I would make a graph that shows the signal strength of the transmissions. Then I would walk around with my laptop until the signal strength spiked, and I would know that I had roughly arrived at the source of the deauthentication attack. So that would be the way that I would track down a signal that was doing this. You could also have like a deauthentication detector with a signal monitor and effectively do the same thing. It's just if you had multiple devices doing deauthentication, it might be a little confusing, but it would not be that difficult. All right, so here's another question. What's it called when a radio communication device isn't jammed per se, but is spoofed, providing false communications? That would be the ideal term for a Wi-Fi tech. I mean, spoofing is pretty much what it is. Like, like spoofing just means that you're mimicking another device and you're basically like pretending to be that device. But the actual attack would be, yeah, like a protocol-based deauthentication spoofing attack would be like, I guess it's like technical name. But yeah, and then also good answer on this. Wireshark or a similar packet monitor is going to be the way to do it. I would say like as a little mini baby IDS, like intrusion detection system for Wi-Fi, I still really like Kismet. It gives you alerts. It detects things like Wi-Fi pineapples. Like it's pretty well set up to be able to detect like somebody doing malicious activity. It does false trigger on some things. Like sometimes it'll like tell me that like, a device has changed its MAC address. I'm like, I don't care. Like, okay. But it will find things like, for example, if the same device isn't changing its MAC address, but it's putting out multiple Wi-Fi access point names, it will warn you about that. And I think that that's really cool. And okay, here's a question I can answer. What is our store URL again? Yeah, so that's going to be nugget.dev. That's actually our like overall website for the Nugget, but it includes the link to the store, which is redia.io. But yeah, nugget.dev has become the home for all of our electronics that we've been making and prototyping for teaching lessons around Wi-Fi security, and also for teaching about bad USB attacks and CircuitPython, making prototypes. So yeah, lots of really cool stuff around electronics, Wi-Fi, hacking, and all that stuff, all at that URL. Okay, so I am over my time. So, oh, wait, Tai Ping Gong, hi, nice to see you again. You're getting a little bit late, but it's good to see you. I'm a little bit over my time, but I can take a couple more questions. A lot of really good Wi-Fi related questions where I feel like maybe I need to take another deep dive into WPA3. It's been a while, and my friend Matthew Van Hoff has come on the stream a couple times before and talked about all the like really like specific and like interesting attacks you can do based on some of the more recent research he's done. I know he also found some like devices that will just accept plain text commands over Wi-Fi, even if they're connected to a secure encrypted Wi-Fi network, which is pretty crazy. Like that you can just transmit commands at them and they'll just listen to it, even if it's not properly encrypted. So a lot of this stuff, really, really interesting and really cool if you dive into how Wi-Fi fails sometimes and the unique, interesting behaviors you can get it to do. All right, here's a question. Funny how we have a lot of deauth devices, but not so much devices to counter them. Business idea, anyone? Well, I will say all these deauthers will no longer work as soon as devices are upgraded to WPA3 or if they have protected management frames enabled. That's becoming increasingly common. So I think we'll see these devices become less effective at their original jamming purpose. But I know at least for the Wi-Fi Nugget, I'm planning on doing more research into using beacons to do attacks. And this sort of attack is really, really interesting, highly effective, and I think may end up being the more effective and consistent attacks that continue to work. Maybe not against WPA3, but definitely against like WPA2 that has protected management frames, which again is more common, and you'll expect to see it more often now. So much hacking wise to learn, running like a chicken with my head cut off. Yeah, dude. So that's what's crazy. You really have to find a niche that you find super interesting and just do a deep dive on it. Meet other people that are interested and like meet your heroes. Like I was reading papers by like Matthew Van Hoff and like amazed by the stuff he was finding and what a great communicator he was as like an academic Wi-Fi researcher for years before I actually reached out to him and got to like meet him at a conference and interview him, and then eventually like work with him on stuff. So sometimes like you'll just find someone who just gets it and can communicate in a way that like really makes sense, and they'll be a good person to learn from. That's what I found anyways. Like there's so much out there about hacking and about like, you know, cybersecurity that if you try to learn everything, it's going to be really difficult. But if you find a couple things you feel really comfortable about, learn a lot about them, and then learn a general amount about other things and stay curious, like you'll have a place. Like I wouldn't worry too much about it. It's something that just takes finding what your strongest interests are and then using that to your advantage. Like, you know, people who do a job just because they have to do it to make money and they don't really like it that much, they don't dig into the details. But if you really find anything about ethical hacking or cybersecurity fascinating, you'll be a lot more motivated to go into the way it works and become more of an expert than the average person who's just working with the tech will. So all right, one question. Beacon attack as in 50% spoofing and 50% something else. So beacon attacks are typically like when you will create beacons that cause havoc on a network. I would define it probably as protocol-based jamming as well. In some cases, where, for example, you can do these very clever things like send beacons that say that the network has a very, very slow data rate. So slow that it would almost be impossible to actually transmit information. You can also do things that cause the device to wait an indefinite period of time for other devices to finish speaking on the network. And you can also set the power level so low that it's not able to actually send or receive packets. These sorts of information elements inside a beacon frame that give information about, you know, what's permitted on the network and the way the network works can be manipulated to cause devices to drop their power level so low they can't be heard, wait forever before transmitting, or like do other things that would cause a network to stop working properly. So that's why beacons are a very interesting area of study now. Deauthentication attacks are very well known, but beacon attacks, fresh, new, interesting. So that's kind of what I've been focused on. And yes, I would absolutely love to do more of a deep dive on these like WPA three things, maybe even have Matthew Van Haaf back on the stream to talk about, you know, the last year in Wi-Fi research and some of the things he has gone over. I love reading his papers, but they are a little dense for people. I tend to read them on airplanes. So maybe we could have another follow-up stream talking about the specifics of Wi-Fi hacking, because that's of course my favorite thing is Wi-Fi hacking. All right. So right as the stream is kicking up, it's time to go again. If you are wanting to keep the conversation going, jump on our Discord server. I'm going to find and repost the link. But yeah, our nugget.lol domain has continued to be taken down by a spam report. So boo to that. But you can still find us at this one right here. I'll leave it on the screen for a while. So anyway, thank you to everybody who's been asking great questions on the stream. Seems like we got onto some like Wi-Fi hacking stuff, which is of course my favorite. So if you have any questions that weren't answered, or if you're watching this on repeat, join our Discord server. And you'll notice that there is a live Q&A section of our Discord server where you can jump in and ask a question. So we answer questions about yogging smartphone distance, fingerprinting, brute forcing. Yeah, like so. If you want to have your question answered live on the chat, I will go through the questions on the YouTube channel, and of course, I'll be in the chat, like looking for anything there. But yeah, just jump in on our Discord server, and we are always happy to answer questions, let you know if the stream's going on, and all that fun stuff. So that's all I got for this week. I am going to be gone out of my studio and elsewhere. So I guess the next stream I'm going to be doing is in LA. Maybe I'll do it from Null Space Labs, but probably not because it's hot and I hate the heat. So I'll probably be doing it from a little tiny room in Los Angeles somewhere on Friday, where I'm going to be doing the live hacker news, I assume with Killian. And before I forget, also, after saying all those nice things about Verona's, I didn't even tell you guys what you can do to support the stream. So if you like the stream, then you can go to veronas.com/Kody, Kody. Oh my gosh. Here we go. Each week I'm changing this to a new event that Verona's is doing. I'm not the only one making free stuff here. Like there's also some really great and interesting events that are going on. In this case, it is exposing the 3 biggest risks to your Salesforce org. There's also a like an AI like threat one that's coming up soon. So no matter what you do, if you go to this link, people will know that you like our live stream, and they will pat me on the back for all the attention that we've managed to get. So if you like the live stream, make sure to support it. Go to veronas.com/Kody, that's Kody, and check out our live sessions. Yeah, so see you guys next week, where I will be, on Friday, where I will be in Los Angeles. And yeah, have a good one, everyone. Goodbye.